How's it going, guys? Anthony from Saz 4x4 here, and we've got my built Barra motor here, built by Precision Racing, rated to over 1,000 plus horsepower, and today we're going to be installing the intake manifold, exhaust manifold and turbo. Before we begin, I'll go through some of the engine specs. It's got Precision Racing forged pistons and rods, ARP head studs, heavy duty timing chain kit, billet oil pump gears, modified oil galleries, 115 pound valve springs, stage 2 Precision Racing crank, stainless steel valves, mild porting, fire ring head gasket upgrade, Falcon HT2 cams with VCT gears, grout fill block, girdle, race series, harmonic balancer with underdrive, and upgraded piston pins. There is a few more, but that's the main stuff. Moving on to engine accessories, I've gone with the Garrett G42 1450 V-band turbo with a stainless steel rear housing capable of producing up to 1,450 horsepower. I also went with a 6-boost top mount exhaust manifold to suit with the provision for an external wastegate. Speaking of wastegates, I decided to go with Go Fast Bit's 50mm wastegate with V-band connectors. Moving on to the intake side of the engine, I bought a Plasmaman billet inlet manifold with fuel rail, both powder coated black, and I have to give it to Plasmaman, it's got to be the nicest looking car part I've ever seen. So if you want a good looking manifold, you know who to go to. The first step of installing the intake manifold on the motor is to push little rubber O-ring gaskets into a recessed groove at each port. This is quite unique as intake manifolds normally have a one-piece gasket that runs the length of the intake. I believe this is required because a traditional gasket may blow out with large PSI pressures. So we just finished installing the intake manifold and it looks absolutely gorgeous. So now we're ready to put on the exhaust manifold. So just opening up the gasket for it. There we go, nice and shiny. It's a little bit delicate, so I've got to be a bit careful. Normally you'd have studs where you can just put this right on, but the ones that we're using, they're not studs, they're actually bolts with a special locking thing on it, so it's a little bit different to the normal way. So I'm applying some high temp gasket sealant on the exhaust manifold as well as on the motor to make sure both sides of the gasket are sealed properly and there are no exhaust leaks. So normally when you do exhaust manifolds, you use studs, but in this case we're using actual bolts because they've got a special locking mechanism. Basically they've got this triangle piece, so for this to loosen it's got to turn anti-clockwise, it's got to turn that way. So if you line this up to the certain way, see how that's a bit loose, we can actually tighten it a bit more so it then butts up against that. And then you push this all the way in and you put this little circlip in here, so then it can never actually loosen without taking out this clip. So that's the method we've gone for because sometimes exhaust manifolds, the bolts to get loose and that, this way they'll never fall off. Alright, so it's finally time to put the turbo on, my favourite bit, let's go. Alright, so that about wraps it up. We've finished installing everything. I think it looks pretty good, but I got you guys be the judge of that. And next video, hopefully the gearbox will have arrived and we can put the engine in the car. So if you guys want to see that, make sure you like and subscribe, and hopefully see you guys next time.